Hello, welcome to another episode of Navigating to Success. I'm certified focal point business coach Jeff Carlton, and today I am joined by Jamison Rounds, a talented attorney out in South Dakota. He has a really interesting background and a really interesting company. It looks like it's very specialized. But Jamison, welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So tell us about your company and what you do.
So Rounds International is the parent company. The company I operate out of most of the time is a company called Visor. And this company is primarily a valuation company. We start with valuations. We then work with companies all the way through the development process and then take them to an exit and do mergers and acquisitions. So that's been the company that we're in right now. I spend most of my time there. Been doing that really for about the last 12 years. Was an M&A, an outside M&A, effectively an outside M&A vice president for a large healthcare company that about a $2 billion healthcare company. We did their nationwide mergers and acquisitions for home health and hospice from about 2011 until about 2019-ish there until they were acquired by another company. Also have been a part-time professor, was chair of a business department at a small university, and have taught at another university for about 6 years. Prior to that, really was I have practiced law, but was really helping little companies get big. Started off in the governor's office of economic development in South Dakota, both as an intern years and years and years ago, and worked in there. Had a brother who was running for governor and didn't have any help. I got off an airplane in February of 2002. The primary was in June of that year. Found a home computer, a shoebox of files, a cell phone, and name recognition below the margin of error, and two well-funded competitors. We managed to win that primary with no paid staff, 150,000 in donations, and then won the general election. So ended up working with him for a couple of years. Decided I needed to get out and do my own thing. Again, was working at a university on a 50% professorship there, and then had my own contracting and consulting business where we had trained a lot of angel investors in the governor's office. That is something that was not in South Dakota at the time. Entrepreneurship in South Dakota in 2002 was kind of a bad word. It wasn't something that was respected very much. So we had to do a real sea change in the culture of the state. And that did happen. And it was great. And because I had worked with a lot of angel investors, a lot of folks said, "Hey, can you help me get funded by angel investors?" Well, you can't really do that without having securities issues problems. So was able to help consult on small businesses, but it was primarily the private equity groups and the investors that hired me once they'd made the investment. And then we'd grow the little company and then sell the company. Well, became a one-eyed man among the blind because we would sell companies, help them sell those. And so that's how I got into the M&A side of things, was more by trying to help little companies get big and not being able to get paid by the little company. So I had to get paid by the big company and then sell the company to finally cash out. So that's how it got started. That's what we do.
Well, it's a niche market. Um, and we'll talk more about that. So, how big are you now? How many employees?
I have we're small. It's me. I have two analysts. I have a remote bookkeeper and kind of my graphic designs person, and then I have another agent in another town. We have two other folks that come in off and on as consultants on valuation, a CPA and another valuation analyst that we work with. So
I'm pretty lean.
pretty lean, but a lot of our companies are like this. A couple agents, and then the analysts as we need them. So
Okay. And I noticed it's international. So you're working anywhere anywhere in North America, or are you working overseas as well?
I don't work as okay, so Rounds International, like I said, is kind of the parent. That's the one I started actually back in law school, and did my first deal, my third year of law school, over in Germany and Poland, which was fun. But that became kind of the parent company. Uh, we had to have a real estate company that could be an official real estate company, and that's where Value Advisor and Value Advisor Sales and Real Estate comes in, because in South Dakota, Montana, North Dakota, a lot of other states, you have to have a real estate license in order to sell businesses. And so we have that company that becomes the kind of the main number in the marketing. Value Advisor becomes kind of the main company under which we do things. Rounds International then became, and it's a little complicated, became the commission holding company. And that's where we do other projects. So for instance, in 2003, I became the, well, I'm sorry, 2005, I became the first licensed distiller in the state of South Dakota. And we started a distillery in South Dakota. It's still going. It's called Bickering Brothers, and Bickering Brothers for a reason.
You
when we
won't
did,
pull that with you.
uh,
I said I won't pull that thread with you.
yeah, no, that's great though. But it's a wonderful story, and it helps you, how we work with little companies that grow, et cetera. Um, uh, and um, and that would be like through Rounds International. That would have been where that would have been done through. So when we do different projects, Rounds International is a parent, but the business that I'm in primarily right now is this company called ValueVisor, which, like I said, does a, we get a value on a company. We might value the company or some portion of the company for whatever reason, whether it's where they want a baseline to see where they're at today. Maybe they have intellectual property they have to get valued for some reason. Maybe we had one case where somebody thought they might eventually have to go into a nursing home, and they wanted to be able to transfer the assets to their children. So we had to value their intellectual property beforehand to make a fair transfer so that they wouldn't get it taken away if they're in the nursing home. We do, like I said, standard business valuations, both regulatory and M&A, and I guess all three, I should say. What I call business improvement valuations, regulatory valuations, and mergers and acquisitions valuations. All three are different. Their purposes are pretty different. They're done differently. But M&A and business improvement are pretty similar. You get a baseline as to where you're at, and then you see what you can do to up it over time. So over the last few years, we really begun working with companies on how they up their value. Give them a value, let them see where they're at in the market, and then how do we take them to the next step. So like you, we do a fair amount of coaching, right? And we have to work people through the process of where they are now, and a lot of times they'll get to that stage where now they can transfer to their kids, they don't have to sell, or they might say, you know what, I can be a board member. I'm free. I'm working this company, I don't have to sell. And that's a win too.
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually have been engaged with a fitness. Um, he owns a fitness studio, and he's working his exit strategy. But he wants to grow it before he sells it. And I'm like, hey, this is I'm down with this, but it's an interesting. Um, it's not something that we do every day as business coaches per se. So it's really interesting to have this discussion with you where you are really niched into this market. This is all you do pretty much is help these people develop exit strategies. And is that correct?
Uh, not really. I mean, that actually became kind of this afterthought. When I worked for the large company doing their acquisitions, we were looking at 100 deals a year or more, and evaluating them and throwing the vast majority out. But they didn't know how long they were going to be doing the acquiring. So the CFO at the time said, "Hey, we'll bring you in, work for us, but you'll be a contractor. You'll be sitting at the executive leadership table, but keep your outside business, because if you're 3 year, we don't want you to lose your M&A business on the outside." So they said, keep the outside business, do our acquisitions. And in that time, I had all the cash flow I ever needed because I was getting paid by the buyers. So when I did seller work, I could really just take them through, do an initial valuation, figure out where they were, work with them for a while, and then sell them. And then the sell was kind of the nice big hit or the big bonus. That was the kind of unexpected windfall you get, right? We get to sell them, great. We get a commission, it's wonderful. As we knew the other company was coming down to a close and it would be sold, well, now we have to find we probably need to start getting paid for this stuff we were doing for free for folks for a long time. And so that's when we started looking at the consulting process of saying, okay, if we are going to increase the value of your company 2 or 3 times multiple, we probably should get paid during the process of doing that,
It,
particularly a great job and you don't sell.
so did you take the folks that are working with you, your analysts and everything, did you run them through SEPA?
No, I have not.
Uh,
I've done stuff through SEPA myself, but I haven't taken my analyst through.
right.
Actually,
Uh,
Scott was, I think I was in one of his first classes in like 2012 or 11 or something like that.
Interesting. Um, so on the formation of the business and starting it, what do you think was your biggest challenge? I mean, you've done a little bit of everything. What, you know, between running a campaign with a shoestring budget and opening a distillery with the former governor, um, you've done a lot of things.
Well, by the
Well,
way, Governor is not in the distillery. I should say that. Yeah, I
oh,
was, he,
the
he
other
was
brother,
he was another brother, the brother that's actually in the company with me now. And like I say, we call it Bickering Brothers for a reason. He technically has it now, and it won Best Whiskey in the United States in 2020 by the American Distillers Institute, by the way. So it's going, and it's a great product. But no, I have 9 brothers, 1 sister, 2 stepbrothers, 1 stepsister. So it's a big family with a lot of different folks doing different things. But yeah, the biggest challenge that we have is, um, and I'll say it's the same thing. It's getting the client. Um, Doing the work's easy. Actually, in some cases, if you do the work right and selling the business, that can oftentimes be easy. But getting the client is always the most challenging because you're in a crowded field. There's a lot of folks out there. There's a lot of noise, and unfortunately, in the industry, particularly in the in we refer to ourselves as M&A advisors, not business brokers. Largely because I've had clients who will not work with somebody at that stage because that industry oftentimes doesn't carry a great reputation. There's a lot of uh, folks that aren't always being so ethical, aren't always so educated as to what they're doing on valuations, are throwing stuff out there, are playing the fast and furious game because the reality of a lot of this is that it's not always about the numbers, it's about the psychology, the personality, and a lot of those type of things. Um, so a lot of times you can get folks that are coming in that aren't always so trustworthy. So you have to compete with those folks to get the business. And then at the end you have to deal with the psychology to close the business. So
yeah.
and also in this industry, cash flow management's a big deal.
You find most business owners and boards think their business is worth more than it is.
Yeah. I mean, always everybody's child is prettier than the next, right?
Yeah,
Um,
nobody wants to think their baby is ugly in any capacity. Yeah, okay. You've obviously got a ton of experience on that, so I thought I would put out there because it's an important thing for business owners at any stage to consider. Should always be thinking about what their exit strategy is, but don't overestimate what you're worth. Um, be tactical about it and get in front of your plan is the lesson learned there.
get a
So
rep business valuation right away. Be careful about, honestly, I always say be careful about trusting, again, whether it's a broker or whatever, about how they're going to do your value. I've seen brokers throw in things like property tax and payroll taxes into EBITDA calculations, right? Because they don't understand how to do it. And then their client is thinking, oh, my company's worth this. And we're like, sorry, and that's 200,000 off of your annual income. You don't get to count that. That's an expense. And
that's wise words. Seller beware when you get ready to enter that market and go down that path.
exactly. Especially if you're
Um, so kind of getting towards the end of this, what's your future look like? What's the strategic plan? What's your 12 and 36-month plan for rounds?
the 12-month plan is to really hit hard on growing our consulting groups. We're working with a system, used to be called, when I first worked with it was called Built to Sell, and then later on it turned into something called Value Builder, and we joined in with them a little over a year ago, or about a year ago. And I've used them and worked with them, but hadn't been formally affiliated. So now we're affiliated with them. They have an incredible system for helping companies grow. And so I want to start moving more into working with folks who are trying to decide their end game. They may not be selling, it may be whatever. And I want to diversify my income streams into more on that side of things, and whether it is the group coaching, where we get 6 or 8 or 10 folks from around the United States in the same industry, or where we get folks in the local geography from different industries, and helping them work together and then walking them through this program, or working with individual companies to start having them do the official prep and start getting folks that own the companies to think like owners and not managers. And then to continue on with the M&A. We have a couple big deals. We have a nice listing pipeline right now, but we've got to get them across the finish line. And in fact, that's what we're working on today, is trying to bring a couple across the finish line. And when we do that, that makes life a little easier.
Yeah, you really touched on a nerve, and I spend a lot of time, I think most coaches do, of getting business owners to think like owners instead of managers. Um,
That,
get them get them to work on their business instead of in their business. There's too many people that are doing a $15 an hour job, and wondering why they're not getting their $200 an hour paycheck. But,
exactly. Or, they get concerned about making 10% more revenue, when if they slow down on the revenue, they might be able to cut their revenue by 5%, but increase their multiple by 3.
sure.
That, and they don't think in multiples. One of my friends says they think in decimals and not commas.
Yeah, that's good. I'm going to use that. I'm going to rip that off and use that. I like that. Thinking in decimals, not commas.
He's a serial entrepreneur who's done a lot of great businesses in South Dakota, and one of the great people I love to death. And he's always said, you got to be able to think in commas, not decimals.
Love it. Love it. You said you're looking to grow your team. What specifically are you looking to hire right now?
What I'm looking for actually are the marketers, because like I said, the biggest challenge is to get the business. And right now, the business is obtained by doing stuff like you're doing here. It's developing the online presence. We have a bunch of places to be online, but we need to coordinate that. We need to write the correct copy. We need to get them posted. We need to do all of that stuff. So folks with that type of experience, particularly if they can write well and deal with a little graphic design, that's a big thing for us. We also have to sell companies. And so we put together these really large, what are called confidential information memorandums, SIMs, that might be like 60, 70 pages, that are a lot of graphic design, a lot of verbiage, charts and everything in them. And when we do that, it's nice to have someone who can, get in there and do the graphic design, do the editing, help with some of the copy. And then again, also the social media posting. It changes every day. There's some new platform you have to be on. You have to use some system that coordinates it. And it just gets to be time consuming for my team, particularly when I use analysts, right? I use guys who are financial guys. I use kids that are finance guys, and like I'll do that, but I don't really like to, right? So we're looking now for the graphic design and the social media folks.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I'll do it, but I don't like it, which makes it harder to do sometimes. Um, to wrap it up, Ben, what's one thing you would change right now if you could, um, for your present state?
My present state. Um, it would be actually to focus more on the marketing. I'm a great deal closer. I always joke that you get me the deal, I'll close it. I'll work miracles to get them closed. But the digital world of prospecting and the anonymous prospecting, and I'm fairly remote. I'm in South Dakota, so a lot of these businesses can be around the United States. I'm not in Chicago at the coffee shop, or I'm not at the gathering of ACG all the time, where a lot of these companies are. So I'm not always being able to go to every conference and network. So we have to have a digital source. We have to have a way of marketing. So I would improve our marketing.
And that's a great way to wrap this up, because that is a lot of the reason that I started this series. And for people in the Plains and Mountain West region, is that we are remote, and we're not out there. And there are good, solid, thriving businesses in the Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming, Idaho, Eastern Washington, that are often getting overlooked and are quite affordable and extremely talented.
Yep.
Um, and you know, we need 5 more like you
And like you,
around.
a couple of things. Are you all offline here for a second? Are we at the end?
Um, the end.
At it here. I have a good colleague I think he's in Bozeman, I think, Montana. He's actually a Murphy broker. His name's Tom Nelson. He's a business broker, but he does a lot of M&A. rock solid guy, rock solid human being, wonderful person to work with up there. So yeah, you mentioned this being out in the plains. He's up in the Mountain West, right? And that, I think he owns the Murphy Mountain West franchise. Good, solid guy. Another guy, if you're looking at guys where you network and you cross over paths with, and you're doing the exit planning, and you needed a guy who does the business sales and vice versa, and do referrals back and forth. Rock solid guy, totally good guy.
Well, we'll
And
close it.
another one, forgot. There's two of them out there. Dexter and Dexter Sherman's another guy who I really have done a lot of business with and like to work with.
All right. Awesome. Well, we'll wrap this episode up. Jameson, any other parting shots for the audience today?
No, thank you. Just if you're looking at wondering what your end game is, find a good person, whether it's like Jeff or me, and get the information up front, have them walk you through the process, and start with evaluation, figure out where you are, and then make sure that as you go through it, it's reputable, and you know who's helping you in the end when it is time to exit.
There you go. Wise words, sir. Thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Jameson, thank you. And we'll see everybody on the next episode.